Well, thank you for joining me for another episode of Total Ramblings. This is another Doctor Who episode review, and this week we are looking at the final episode of this series, Empire of Death. So there will be spoilers, okay? So if you don't want to be spoiled, if you haven't seen this episode, then and you don't want to know what finds out, then turn off now. I've literally just finished watching it, as I always do. This is an immediate reaction video of immediate off-the-cuff thoughts to it. I haven't really had time to process it. This is just bang. My immediate thoughts. Bits of it lived up to episode 1, the last episode, but bits of it I thought were a bit twee. I have to say, this was a typical Russell T Davies season series ending. I'm not saying it was bad. I just think we're back to form. Essentially, we end the cliffhanger with Susan Triad and Harriet Arbinger releasing Sutek's Dust of Death. Sutek has got this ability now to spread a dust that kills on contact, and of course, you know, we are of course reminded of Thanos and the snap in the way that people disappear, except this is everything, all life. So Sutek in classic Doctor Who was a very powerful entity, but he was super paranoid that something one day would usurp him, and so he decided to kill everything, basically, so that could never happen. And also he's got this perverse way of looking at things whereby to remove doubt and uncertainty, he gives you the certainty of death. I suppose that's one way of looking at it. So we see the dust of death going through the streets of London. I've just written down here 9/11, when those towers collapsed and we saw the dust, the billows of dust. It was very much kind of like that. And it's interesting that we have a Doctor Who villain that actually wipes out the Earth and, in fact, everything, the universe. Sutek achieved his goal. We have some very good scenes with the Doctor and Mel on the back of a carrot juice coloured moped. I have to think that it was orange for that reason. Carrot juice, carrot juice, carrot juice. And they go back into the time window room where basically the memory of the TARDIS becomes a real TARDIS. It becomes the memory TARDIS that we've seen in Tales from the TARDIS. So we kind of now have like a rationale for why this thing exists. And I didn't watch the edited and new special effects version of Pyramids of Mars that was on last night, but it was a Tales from the TARDIS episode. They were on the memory TARDIS, and one would imagine that this retelling of the story fits in there somewhere. I say I have to imagine because I didn't watch it. So yeah, it turns out that Susan Twist, this actress, or Triad, Mrs. Twist, whatever her frickin' name is, basically that they've been seeing her throughout all their adventures, and it's Sutek. Sutek's been hitching a ride on the TARDIS for a very long time, as it turns out. Everywhere the Doctor's gone, he's created this apparition, and most recently it's become apparent to the TARDIS crew, and in fact in 2024 it's generated a real person. As they say, Sutek, the god of death, has created life. The Doctor refers to Sutek as Suits at one point. And, you know, the Doctor's there berating Sutek, and I was sort of wondering, why doesn't Sutek just kill him there and then? I get that the Doctor's a complex space-time event, but it sort of transpires that there's also this mystery around Ruby's mother, which I'll come back to in a sec. But essentially, Sutek, having hitched a ride on the TARDIS and essentially got inside the TARDIS and kind of become one with the TARDIS, Everywhere the Doctor's gone, Sutekh has infected the universe with his apparitions, which can produce this dust of death. And essentially it means that the entire universe can be wiped out, and not just necessarily at one point in time. If the Doctor's been to a planet at multiple points in time, it gets killed at each point in time. And it also has the ability to travel through generations, because essentially what Sutekh's done is he's turned the Doctor into a weapon. I think that's a very powerful kind of concept, because the Doctor's been buggering around, having fun, as he says, and all this while Sutekh's been hitching a ride on the TARDIS and has been infecting the universe and essentially using the Doctor to destroy, which I think is as a story concept is quite neat. I like that because there would be very, very few characters, if any, people in the Doctor Who universe who would have travelled as much as the Doctor, and kind of infecting each of those worlds as the Doctor lands there surreptitiously. I think that's genius, actually. I like that. But here's the thing. So the Doctor goes to this planet where he meets this woman, and she's got a baby daughter. And I think we're immediately made to think, oh, is this Ruby? No, the daughter's dead, in fact. And what's happening is the plague, or the dust of death, it kills people, and then it can kind of jump through generations. We know from Apocrypha, sort of non-televised stories, that essentially Sutekh waged a time war against the other Osirans, and he's capable of sort of time travel. And of course, he's been in the time vortex, hitching a ride on the TARDIS. So, yeah, essentially this is kind of like a generational sort of plague, if you like. But it turns out that, yeah, we kind of get references back to the 73 yards episode. So it turns out the TARDIS's perception filter operates at a sort of 73 yard range. I'd have to kind of watch it again, because the Doctor says weird things kind of happen. But I think this is like the limit of where Sutekh can generate stuff. And I think it's possibly implied that effect is maybe what's caused the potential branching timeline of the 73 yards episode. Now, in the 73 yards episode, we kind of see an alternative future with this Roger ap Gwilym Prime Minister, who Ruby, through her actions, basically gets rid of and kind of closes off that loop. And then it turns out that loop may or may not have actually happened. In this reality, it sounds like he did make Prime Minister, and he did put this kind of DNA thing in, which is where the Doctor and Ruby kind of end up in 2046 trying to find Ruby's mum. Because essentially this becomes important, because Sutekh, having hitched a ride on the TARDIS for all these years, wasn't able to see who Ruby's mother was. And this kind of triggered him to a degree. And this is kind of what woke him up and sort of made him suddenly go, onto this killing spree, was that he couldn't see who this woman was. Now, I'm going to come back to that at the end, because I don't buy that. Anyway, meanwhile, he is kind of seeing things through Mel. So the Doctor, Ruby and Mel are travelling on board this memory TARDIS, which is a TARDIS made up of all bits of other TARDISes and made up of memories, essentially. And the Doctor has to get a piece of real material to kind of link it back to the real universe. The Doctor's TARDIS, meanwhile, is essentially under the control of Sutekh, who's sitting on it like it's Snoopy on his kennel. So the Doctor is dragged back because Mel gets kind of corrupted by Sutekh. The Doctor and Ruby are dragged back to see Sutekh, who is desperate to know who Ruby's mother is, because this is this big mystery to him. And essentially they tempt him and they get close to him by sort of, saying, oh, here's the details. Whereupon, of course, the Doctor uses this memory rope, or no, but not memory rope, this rope or whatever it is, to hitch Doggy to the TARDIS, so to speak, and drag him back through time and space. And as the Doctor says, giving death to death, so reversing everything that Sutekh's done by killing death. Okay, I love the visuals, don't get me wrong. The TARDIS dragging Sutekh through the time vortex and ripping it open, and the doggy creature flailing around, and the glimpse through the TARDIS doors. I loved all that kind of thing. That was fantastic. And Sutekh's death at the end, because the Doctor says, you're turning me into a monster, because the Doctor's forced to kill Sutekh. I actually kind of felt sorry for him in a way, but yeah, death, giving death to death. So here we go back with the bits that I struggle with here, and again, this is an immediate knee-jerk reaction to this episode. I haven't rewatched any episodes from this series yet, and I might rewatch the entire series now that we know what the arc is. So I fully accept there may be bits that I'm missing, but this rubbish at the end about Ruby's mother being important because Ruby gave her importance. How did Sutekh not see her? I don't get it. She's just a person. She's an ordinary person. Yes, my prediction about the woman leaving Ruby being Ruby was wrong. I get that. But that was always going to happen. She's just an ordinary person. I don't get why Sutekh couldn't see her. And it was Sutekh not being able to see her that triggered Sutekh into basically revealing himself and starting this whole sequence of events. I don't get why that was so important, or why he couldn't see the woman. And the death to death thing, okay, whatever. It was a glorious scene. We're seeing a lot of emotion from this Doctor. I am kind of reminded in a way of the Fifth Doctor in Peter Davison, in that this is a more vulnerable sort of Doctor. He's able to express himself a lot more. And then, as I say, at the end, I don't know why we have to have this. Why do we have to have, at the end of every season, every series, the companion apparently leaving the Doctor? Now, spoilers, we know Millie Gibson's back for the next series. Why can't we just have them going off together again, just like in the old days where the companion just carries on with the Doctor? Why do we have to have this fake ending of her leaving? It's kind of like, I've said this for a while now, it's like ever since New Doctor Who started, every time a producer leaves, the Doctor leaves and the companion leaves. We've never had a situation where Christopher Eccleston or David Tennant or Peter Capaldi or Matt Smith ever had more than one producer. Yeah, it would be interesting to see, for example, if Matt Smith had stayed on when Stephen Moffat left and Chris Chibnall had had a chance to work with him. We could have got something different out of him. Does that make sense? Instead, it's like we have these defined eras that have definite blocks between them. Producer goes, Doctor goes, whole slate's wiped clean. I'd like to see a bit of more of continuity, and I'd like to see a bit more continuity across the seasons as well, knowing that the companion is going to stay, and just having the Doctor and the companion riding off into the sunset. I don't know why we have to have these scenes. And like I say, it's a typical Russell T Davies ending, that after the big bad is defeated, we then basically get 10 minutes of the Doctor and Ruby having a chat and everything getting wrapped up. It's kind of like the end of the Return of the King, the Lord of the Rings film, where you've got like 17 different endings. I don't think we need that all the time. Maybe that's just me. I'm not saying it's necessarily bad. It's just we've seen it before. Couldn't we have something a little bit different, please? But then at the end, we get, is it Mrs. Flood appearing clearly in a Christmas get-up, probably advertising the Christmas episode. essentially saying the Doctor's story ends in terror. We still don't know who she is. She was being especially creepy during the Sutekh Dust of Death bit. And she knows about Sutekh. Who is she? Is she going to turn out to be the Rani or somebody like that? She knows what a TARDIS is. She's been another recurring character. Who is she? I like the mystery there, but like no clues whatsoever, really. So what did I think? Yeah, I enjoyed this episode. Perhaps not quite as much as the one before. I didn't think it was quite as strong. I think in the middle, when it turns out maybe the Doctor's been wandering through time, through space for a long time after everything has died, before he meets this lady with the dead baby, I think it's implied that it's been a long time, obviously. Not quite sure that worked. There were some things in the episode that didn't quite work for me, some explanations that didn't quite work. But I think it was a good episode. I think this season overall has been fantastic. I don't think this episode was ever going to be as good as the first part. But, you know, Sutekh just kind of sits around and lets his servants do everything for him. We did wonder if the doggy was just Sutekh's servant and what the real manifestation of Sutekh was. No, that was him. But the imagery of the Earth being destroyed with the dust of death, and the imagery of Sutekh being dragged through the time vortex from the TARDIS. I mean, it reminds me of previous Russell T Davies endings when they were towing the Earth. But I can't fault the imagery. I thought that was excellent. I thought that was really good. It's just a slight shame that the sound wasn't mixed quite right, because Gabriel Wolf's voice as Sutekh his pronunciation and his elucidation is so brilliant. I would love to have had more of the voice in the mix rather than the sound effects and the snarling doggy and the music. There's something quite chilling about maybe just hearing his voice on its own with nothing in the background, because it's such an excellent voice acting, you know. I have really enjoyed this season. It's probably time to watch the whole thing again now. We know what the arc is, as I say. I think Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson make a fantastic TARDIS team. I think they're both brilliant in their roles. I love the TARDIS interior. I think the theme tune is a little bit weak, but that's just modern Doctor Who. It's got too much going on. We've got there's the underlying theme that Murray Gold kind of created that's always got to be there, and it seems to be taking more prominence. But that's a small point. I bloody love the diamond logo. It's my favourite Doctor Who logo, always has been, and I was absolutely delighted to see it come back, and I hope they keep it forever, because it is the quintessential Doctor Who logo. So, all in all, I'm giving this series a massive thumbs up. As I say, a slight down for the last episode, but it wasn't bad. I'm not knocking it. I'm just, there were just some things that didn't quite work for me, but maybe on a rewatch they will. Like I say, we're now 15 minutes into this video, and I started it literally having just turned it off. So I've got some notes. There might be some things that I've forgotten. I just don't know. I might need to watch it again. But those are my immediate off-the-cuff thoughts. So thank you very much for joining me for this episode of Total Ramblings. If you're just here for the Doctor Who stuff, then I don't know when I'm going to see you again, presumably Christmas. If you're here for other episodes, I'm sure I'll have one up very, very soon. I do lots of stuff on this channel. I do the occasional unboxing. I play with Lego. I play with Star Wars toys. I talk to my cats. I fly drones. I rant about stuff. I talk about my life and other things like that. So this is Total Ramblings, existence on planet Earth. This is about my life, about me, and the things that I like to do. And you get it all warts and all with me. So if you are just here for the Doctor Who, maybe try some other stuff as well on this channel. At the time of writing this, I don't write this, there's no script. At the time of saying this, I have 169 subscribers. Yay me. I don't pretend I'm ever going to make a living out of this, but I think some of the stuff I put out is pretty good. Some of the drone stuff I've been doing I think is nice. So, you know, if you want to hear an old guy, I'm 53 this Thursday, please buy me a present. If you want to hear an old guy talking about random stuff like Doctor Who, like photography, like Star Wars, Lego, all this other stuff that I'm interested in, then I'd be really grateful if you could maybe hit subscribe, give me a follow, and try and maybe watch some of my other stuff if you're just here for the Doctor Who stuff. But if you are just here for the Doctor Who stuff, thanks very much for watching, and I'll probably see you Christmas Day when the next episode's on. All right? Thanks. If you enjoy what I do here, although I can't think why, please remember to click the like button, smash that subscribe button, and hit the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video. You might also want to check out my website, www.worldsbestestpoet.com, if you fancy a laugh.